Hi, welcome to this month's first midweek warm-up.
Beginning of the month.
Beginning of the month. Hopefully, Lord willing, we'll have a little more consistency with our midweek warm-ups. But today we're going to be going through Job 38 and 39. And this is kind of an exciting point, I guess, because...
Well, it's the culmination of the entire book at this point.
Yeah. So God is going to directly respond to Job. And...
I mean, it's got to be terrifying for everyone around, too, because...
Yeah.
Some people think that God literally pulled Job from where he was to him, but when verse 1 says, then the Lord answered out of the whirlwind, I'm pretty sure that's clear that God's there in a tornado of some sort saying, let's get this straight.
Yeah. And even in that situation, I imagine they're like, oh my goodness, he's so powerful, but that's him still restraining his power, because if they had seen him, if he had been there in his full glory, they would have all died.
Well, not only that, this is prior to him leading the people out of Egypt, so they'd never seen him as a pillar of fire ever from smoke yet.
Oh wow.
So this is God's first time appearing probably to mankind since the Garden of Eden.
Well, it said that Adam and Eve still spoke with him, and he specifically spoke with Cain.
Mm-hmm.
So...
But there's no evidence of God appearing in a physical manifestation to Cain. It was more voice.
I would say absolutely post-flood. Mm-hmm. This would be the first.
More than likely, yeah.
Except unless I'd have to look again. If you know for sure, maybe you've read it recently.
It's not entirely clear biblically, but
yeah.
Any way you look at it, it's terrifying.
Yeah. So.
Okay, we've got a long way to go. We're going to do it quickly. Because this entire thing is really just God saying, you think you're a big man.
Yeah.
You're not.
Well, and it's... We can kind of perceive it with this sort of condescending, arrogant attitude, but God is rightfully saying, who are you? Like, did you do all these things? No, I did all of these things. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Exactly. Okay, so 38. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this who darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Now prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who measured or determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened, or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Or who shut in the sea with doors, when it burst forth and issued from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment, and thick darkness its swaddling band? When I fixed my limit for it, and set bars and doors? When I said, this far you may come, but no farther, and here your proud waves must stop? Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place, that it may take hold of the ends of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it? It takes on form like clay under a seal, and stands out like a garment. From the wicked their light is withheld, and the upraised arm is broken. Have you entered the springs of the sea, or have you walked in search of the depths? Have the gates of death been revealed to you, or have you seen the doors of the shadow of death? Have you comprehended the breadth of the earth? Tell me if you know all this. Where is the way to the dwelling of light? And darkness, where is this place? That you may take it to its territory, that you may know the path to its home. Do you know it because you were born then, or because the number of your days is great? Have you entered the treasury of snow, or have you seen the treasury of hail, which I reserved for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war? By what way is light diffused, or the east wind scattered over the earth? Who has divided a channel for the overflowing water, or a path for the thunderbolt, to cause it to rain on a land where there is no one, wilderness in which there is no man, to satisfy the desolate waste, and cause it to spring forth the growth of tender grass? Has the rain a father, or who has begotten the drops of dew? From whose womb comes the ice, and the frost of heaven, who gives it birth? The water is hardened like stone, and the surface of this deep is frozen. Can you bind the cluster of the Pleiades, or loose the belt of Orion? Can you bring out Mazzaroth in its season? Or can you guide the great bear with its cubs? Do you know the ordinances of the heavens? Can you set their dominion over the earth? Can you lift up your voice to the clouds, that an abundance of water may cover you? Can you send out lightnings, that they may go and say to you, here we are? Who has put wisdom in the mind, or who has given understanding to the heart? Who can number the clouds by wisdom, or who can pour out the bottles of heaven when the dust hardens in clumps and the clods cling together? Can you hunt the prey for the lion, or satisfy the appetite of the young lions when they crouch in their dens, or lurk in their lairs to lie in wait? Who provides food for the raven when its young ones cry to God and wander about for lack of food? Do you know the time when the wild mountain goats bear young, or can you mark when the deer gives birth? Can you number the months that they fulfill? Or do you know the time when they bear young? They bow down, they bring forth their young, they deliver their offspring. Their young ones are healthy, they grow strong with grain, they depart and do not return to them. Who set the wild donkey free? Who loosed the bonds of the onager? Whose home I have made the wilderness, and the barren land his dwelling. He scorns the tumult of the city. He does not heed the shouts of the driver. The range of the mountains is his pasture, and he searches after every green thing. Will the wild ox be willing to serve you? Will he bed by your manger? Can you bind the wild ox in the furrow with ropes, or will he plow the valleys behind you? Will you trust him because his strength is great, or will you leave your labor to him? Will you trust him to bring home your grain and gather it to your threshing floor? The wings of the ostrich wave proudly, but are her wings and pinions like the kindly stork's? For she leaves her eggs on the ground and worms them in the dust. She forgets that a foot may crush them, or that a wild beast may break them. She treats her young harshly, as though they were not hers. Her labor is in vain, without concern, because God deprived her of wisdom and did not endow her with understanding. When she lifts herself on high, she scorns the horse and its rider. You have given the horse strength. Have you closed his neck with thunder? You frighten him like a locust. His majestic snorting strikes terror. He paws in the valley and rejoices in his strength. He gallops into the clash of arms. He mocks at fear and is not frightened, nor does he turn back from the sword. The quiver rattles against him, the glittering spear and javelin. He devours the distance with fierceness and rage, nor does he come to a halt because the trumpet is sounded. At the blast of the trumpet he says, "Aha!" He smells the battle from afar, the thunder of captains and shouting. Does the hawk fly by your wisdom and spread its wings toward the south? Does the eagle mount up at your command and make its nest on high? On the rock it dwells and resides, on the crag of the rock in the stronghold. From there it spies out the prey. Its eyes observe from afar. The young ones suck up blood, and where the slain are, there it is.
Yep. So none of us can do any of those things. Although I find it interesting, some of the things that he mentions, even like knowing when wild animals have their children or young one, babies.
When the deer had their puppies.
Obviously, we can determine that now. Like we've had enough time and like considered.
Tell what month they're going to have them in generally, but
yeah,
we don't know when they're going to have them.
No.
We can't even tell when we're going to have our own babies.
That's true. But like the general idea of they are generally pregnant for this amount of time. That's how many months, right? That he's talking about.
Yes, he's talking about the gestation period, which we know what the gestation period is for deer, but we don't know when the baby deer was made.
Yeah.
We don't know when the baby deer is going to be born. And even then, the gestation period is an estimate.
Yeah.
Like all three of ours, who knows if they would have ever come out.
They were late.
And it was induced.
Anyway.
Now
Yeah.
she's embarrassed, apparently.
Yeah.
She tells everyone.
Anyway, I think it's interesting that there are some things that we've been able to scientifically determine why we think certain things happen, like the dew and the frost. And I think that we understand more about, like, there's not really a storehouse full of rain waiting to come onto the earth. There's not really a storehouse full of snow.
Well, there is. It's the storehouse of the sky.
But it changes. It's a cycle. The water can freeze and thaw and
it does
evaporate and
but at the same time
precipitate.
We understand all these things now, and we can control them, but we can't control the planet.
Yeah, we
can control it in a box, a little box.
Yeah, and we've learned to deal with when it rains or snows or hails. Sometimes. As far as we have structures that we can be in, and we have heat or air conditioning, and
just a tsunami
capacity. We have the capacity
hurricane.
to respond to it, but we still don't have any capacity to cause any of it to happen.
We can't stop it from happening either.
Yeah.
And that's what God's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get to that part. We'll start at the beginning of the chapter. I think it's very important here that you look at the very first thing that he really says is, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? It's like saying, you weren't there when I did that. Why do you have a right to question it or comment on it? It's like when you go to a company, you complain about, oh, well, they should be doing this and this and this. And then the company president comes by and says, were you there when I started this business 70 years ago? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that things don't change over time, but there's a certain level of control and power that comes with the one that started something. And there's no comparison here between Job, who's a man, and God, who made man. When God says, where were you when I did all these things? Because he's not even going into these are all the things I've done in your life. This is all the things I've done so that your life can exist. And not just yours, but everyone else on the planet at the same time.
I like to what were the foundations fastened? Like, that question is like, do you really understand the foundation of the earth? Do you really understand what the earth is, or how big it is, or anything? Anything, really.
Well, the thing you run into frequently with children is that they make broad statements about things, and they don't have a clue what it is they're talking about, but they think they know everything. And God here is saying, you don't comprehend creation, much less think you can control it. Because like Emily said, it's in verse 7 here, it's, to what were his foundations fastened, or who laid his cornerstones when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? So to me, that says that, and there have been questions in the past that I've heard. The angels were happy.
The angels existed when God created the world, when he created earth.
Fairly clear that they were already in existence.
Yeah, but there
are people that argue against it, but
yeah,
it's very obvious that angels existed first.
But it's funny because I don't think the angels knew when God created the earth what humans were going to do.
I don't think angels have a clue about anything else than what God tells them to.
Yeah, he doesn't necessarily reveal the future to them, although I think obviously they know.
They read the Bible, but that's as far as it goes.
Yeah, they know what we know about this.
They know they have jobs to do coming up.
Yeah.
And a select few of them know this is what I'm going to do. But they're not there yet either.
Well, obviously the archangels and the ones that God specifically refers to in Revelation, those specific angels have actual specific direction that they, like, it says that God is...
They're waiting, standing by for God to tell them to get to it.
Yeah, they're just waiting for marching orders.
Oh, they have the orders, they're waiting for the timing on it.
Yes, for the go-ahead.
It's fun. So you have God's going through with that, and then things like, have you commanded the morning since your days began, caused the dawn to know its place? It's obviously we understand that the earth's here and the sun goes like this, exciting, and that's what causes dawn. But we can't make a planet do that. We have people trying to do that in other places around the world where they want artificial suns and stuff. It doesn't work.
It does not work.
And God did it for an entire planet. In the cosmos. Which he's going to talk to momentarily, which we'll get to. But first he's talking about, in verse 16 it says, have you entered the springs of the sea? And that's basically saying, do you know where the water comes from? And recently, obviously, there was a mini sub that went missing and went. And that wasn't even in the deep part of the ocean. Because it gets a lot deeper than where the Titanic is at. And we have no way of getting to it. We have no way of seeing it. And God's here asking Job, have you walked in search of the depths? Have you seen where I told the waves to stop going? Have you seen where the water is and how much water there actually is in the ocean? And of course, this is going to be post-flood. So the world's already been sprung apart. And as it says, it has the springs of the sea. And that's where the water bursts forth from under the ocean. So those existed already at this point. But we don't know where they are necessarily. We definitely have never seen one of them. And so he goes from that to, have you seen the gates of death or the shadow of death? Or do you really understand the breadth of the earth? Or how to get to the dwelling of light, and that would be to heaven. We have no way to get to heaven except dying. And even then, unless you're a Christian, you're not getting there. So
yeah,
we cannot get there on our own. Only God can do it.
I know this is a total aside, but it says in Revelation, there's the great throne judgment, great white throne judgment, however you want to phrase it.
The judgment.
Judgment. So they are actually in the presence of God. Everyone is in the presence of God for long enough to basically be judged.
Long enough for everyone going to hell to know what it is they're missing.
Yeah. To know the truth. How completely heartbreaking and
only for them, though.
Suffocating. Like, it's so real. I don't know if that's the right word.
I'm sure it will be when we get there.
Sad.
Of course, Christians won't be there, so.
Anyway.
We'll be at one of the two judgments. Because there's two. That's a different story. But then it goes through the part that Emily's referencing about the treasury of snow and of hail. And of where water and ice comes from, which, yeah, we know how to freeze things. We have freezers now. That's not a problem. But we can't freeze an entire continent. We can't freeze half the planet at once. We can't control the seasons.
Yeah.
If we did, we wouldn't have crops that die. We wouldn't have a summer where it's 120 degrees in Montana. Because that's bad.
Wildfires.
Yeah, we can't control simple things, much less the fact that God controlled all of them constantly, worldwide, at all times, and have throughout history. So the part I'm really stuck on that we're going to talk about is 31 to 33 here. And it reads, can you bind the cluster of the Pleiades or loose the belt of Orion? Can you bring out Mazzaroth in its season? Or can you guide the great bear with his cubs? Do you know the ordinances of heavens? Can you set their dominion over the earth? And so you probably recognize a lot of these names because of the constellations. So Pleiades, obviously, that's one of the big ones they see in the night sky in the northern hemisphere, you know, in the southern hemisphere. The belt of Orion, obviously, that's Orion's belt.
Yeah.
Which is not a cat if you've ever seen Men in Black.
But I just have to say, I know you're still talking about it, but
that's fine.
This happened thousands and thousands of years ago.
Yes.
And yet we look at our knowledge like we're so smart and we're so amazing, but they're still called the same things for the most part. Like,
yeah, this was 5,000 years ago about.
It was not us that came up with, oh, that looks like a bear.
Yeah, so we're going to skip Mazzaroth for a moment, come back to it. But the second part of that verse is, can you guide the great bear with his cubs? And so if you've gone through school, which if you're an American, you probably did, they will tell you that it's Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, and then say, oh, it's the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper.
Oh, sorry, that's a big bee. You need to...
Buzz. Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Why?
Because you don't. Because it's going to start dinging.
Okay. Sorry. There was a bee trying to get Nathan.
Buzz.
He's allergic.
I'm sweet. Okay, so
anyway.
we call them the Big Dipper and Little Dipper now because we like ice cream.
Because they looked like spoons. The portion that we can see more readily, even in...
I can go with ice cream. They're kind of like ladles.
Yeah.
But historically, they have been known as the Big Bear and the Little Bear. So I can't say that I understand how they get some of the constellations, but they were old. They didn't have TV yet. That's the issue. No video games. And so those are all constellations that have been known to every civilization on the planet by pretty much the exact same name for thousands of years. But then we come to Mazzaroth, which I had to look that one up because I'd heard of it before. We weren't sure what it was. And what do you think about the Mazzaroth?
I don't know how much you want me to go into because you're the one
I'm just asking what you know. Think about the name. It's a weird name.
It makes me think of World of Warcraft.
That it does. Because it sounds an awful lot like one of the Pit Lord's names. Who's
Azeroth.
Well, Azeroth is the planet.
Yeah. It's just a game.
It's like it's a biblical reference there. Sometimes.
Anyway. Sorry.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Mazzaroth is the Hebrew zodiac, which zodiac is the Chinese version of Mazzaroth in actuality. It's not from the Orient, it's from Israel.
Which, again, to me, it's not like originally, it was not them saying you're born under this sign, that means you're this, that, or the other thing. It's this season, so we can see this sign and we know that these things generally happen during this season.
Yes.
It was not intended, in my understanding, originally as any sort of spiritual or personality determiner. Determination. It was just, you were born during this time. And because they didn't necessarily keep track of dates the way that we do.
No, they kept track of them by the month, basically.
Yeah.
And you'd tell the month by what constellation was in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And constellation in the sky, obviously, is not a specific one. It's which one was directly overhead. And so whichever one you could see overhead at night was what month it was. And so, without going into a whole lot of detail about how the Hebrew alphabet works, basically each one of the constellations, which there are approximately 48 separate ones, is based upon a different letter of the alphabet. And there's lots of other things you can go into with symbolism and numerology and stuff that is not explicitly biblical, but can be derived from the Bible and can do lots of weird things. But it's really God saying, I made all the stupid stars in the sky. There are millions of them. You can't count them, but I did it. Good luck trying to be that cool.
Well, and not only did he make them with a single word, but he determined their path, their course. He determines their season and
when they're going to show up.
When they're going to show up.
And the fact that they do show up every single year and have for thousands of years.
Yeah. It just...
Like, we can go out every night and we know that Orion's going to be right up there, and right now the Big Dipper is going to be right over there. And Polaris is almost directly above us in Montana. There's no question. There's no question of, will we go out tonight and they won't be there? No, they'll be there. They always have been. They always will be until they all go away. And at that point, everyone goes away. So no problem there. But that shows how great God is and how entirely the same he is and consistent in everything.
Yeah.
Yet Job has gone from woe is me, I'm so sad and pathetic, to, oh, why would I take only good things from God? And then back to, oh, I'm so sad and pathetic, why are you doing this to me, God?
You're so mean to me, I'm so innocent. But
God's still the same the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to skip through 39 because we're in a long time. It talks about a lot of animals here. And so, as mentioned earlier, we have deer, we have goats. Then we have donkeys. We have lots of donkeys.
Wild donkeys.
We won't call them by their names for donkeys yet.
The ostrich is kind of sad to me, that the ostrich has that kind of lack of wisdom. As it says, God deprived her of wisdom. She has a very small brain.
Well, and if you've ever seen an ostrich, they really are as tall as horses.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in some movies, obviously, you can see people riding on ostriches, which I'm not sure you can actually do that. I mean, an ostrich is big enough.
I think you can.
But they're dumb.
And they're not exactly nice. Like, they're not going to be friendly.
If you've ever seen an ostrich, they're just plain stupid. But they're big. And they have these massive wings that they can't fly with. But they can run really fast. And yeah, they're prone to stepping on their own eggs. Which also is really stupid. But an ostrich egg is like that big. That's a big omelet. Imagine a 3-egg ostrich omelet.
That's gross. Gross.
Yeah, but it talks about here is that her labor is in vain without concern because God deprived her of wisdom and did not endow her with understanding. And so she lifts herself up on high, like it says in 18. But she's still a stupid ostrich. They can't do anything except run around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really it. And when they're scared, they lie their head down on the ground and look behind them. That's not exactly a good defense mechanism. Ostriches are just plain dumb.
They might be more dumb than sheep.
I would not be surprised.
I mean, at least sheep, for the most part, are like, they have that...
Well, you can shear them.
Motherly instinct.
And eat them.
I mean, you could probably eat an ostrich, too.
Like a giant chicken, probably. Yeah.
They're all leg.
Well, they have a body, probably like that big. Be a big chicken. Okay, so we skipped over the wild ox, which basically, if you ever seen a cow, cows don't want to move anyway. I'm guessing a wild one really doesn't want to move. So good luck trying to get it to do your job for you. So what God's trying to say here is that you can't get the wild animal to do something unless you tame it first. But if it's wild still, are you going to trust it to be able to do this work? And the answer simply is no, you can't.
You can't, because then you're going to starve.
Because it's like trying to trust your kids to go and do all the housework and stuff when they're little kids. They don't know what they're doing yet. They can't possibly do it. It seems to work the same way when they're teenagers too, but that's part of being teenagers, I guess. And so it goes from there to a horse. And so it's talking about horses. And the horse here is really a war horse that it's talking about. And so this horse is not scared of anything except for a locust somehow. I don't know how that works.
I could absolutely see that with horses. If you train a horse to not be afraid of, to be used to doing its job despite shouting and fighting and swords and danger and other things. I mean, you can train horses to do that, but there's still going to be something that you don't prepare for, like a snake or a locust.
A bug
something that, but if it flies up at it,
yeah, it's going to go up his nose. I've seen that happen to horses before.
Yeah.
I don't know why they want to go up their noses, but it's like flies flying in your ear. It's just the way it works. But God's talking about, and this horse is not willing to turn away from anything when it's decided that it's time for it to fight. And so it talks about here, and it says, he mocks at fear and is not frightened, nor does he turn his back from the sword, because he's galloping into the clash of arms. So this war horse is just going to plow right into this battle no matter what. And he's not going to stop. And instead of being scared by these sounds, he's going to hear the trumpet and say, okay, it's time for me to run. And he's just going to run until he dies or wins the battle. That's all there is to it. And it's God saying, the horse does this, but I'm the one that made it so it could. You can try and tame it, but you can't stop that horse once it starts running. It's
How
not possible.
Is it that he says, did you clothe its neck with strength?
Clothed his neck with thunder.
With thunder.
But then he follows that with the, can you frighten him like a locust? So it's, you can train them to run. You can train them to be the war horse, but I can still stop them with this little bug. And I do.
Yeah. Well, and again, he's the one that gave them the strength. He's the one that created them.
And so this final one here is talking about hawks. And so hawks and eagles obviously are birds of prey. They see very long distance. And they can pick up things that we can never see at the distances they can see at. And their job is to eat rodents, obviously. They clean up things. But can we possibly do the things the eagles do? Let's say, can we make the eagle mount up and make its nest up on high? And can we get it to build a nest up on the crack of the rock? No, it goes up there and does what it's supposed to do, and it takes out its prey like it's supposed to. No matter what we do to it. I mean, we can have falcon tamers and stuff. But the bird's still going to do what the bird wants to do. And if the bird doesn't want to listen to you, it's not going to. But God's the one that made them and gave them those directions.
Yeah.
So this entire long section is God saying over and over again to Job, yeah, you're a great guy, but you don't have the capacity to do anything in reality.
It's a reminder, because like we mentioned before, Job started off with the right mindset. Who are we to accept only good from God and not bad as well? And then he got kind of stuck in the doldrums of, woe is me, and you're being mean to me because I'm innocent and I didn't do those things and I don't deserve this, and God's just being mean to me for some reason. And then God was like, excuse me, let me just correct you on that.
Yeah, Job's been standing there beating his chest saying, look how great I am still. Why are you picking on me? And God comes up and says, I have the right to if I want to.
Yeah.
Because I'm God. You're not.
Yeah.
And I've done all these amazing things. Where were you? Oh, wait. I hadn't made you yet.
Yeah.
It's like Pinocchio getting mad at Geppetto. He has no right to, because Geppetto still made them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what God's saying throughout this entire thing is, what right do you have to question my methods? What right do you have to question me? And we'll get to next time is in verse 40, or chapter 40, is where God actually says, and I'll read it here in verse 2, is, shall the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? He who rebukes God and let him answer it. And so he's basically telling Job right out, who can actually argue with me about something? Oh, wait, it's you. Tell me why you are. And he calls him out on it. And then Emily looks at her phone.
It's just someone that we need to talk to. So it's fine.
Yeah.
Wrap up.
Yes, with duct tape. Because duct tape fixes everything. Except Job, apparently. So basically, long story made short for this is God's in control. And we're not. Anything else before we pray then?
Even when God comes down on Job, it's not like he's
not mad at him.
He's not mad at him, and he's not trying to be mean. He's correcting an error and reminding Job who he is, and it's a good thing.
Yes, he's fixing his theology for him.
Yeah.
All of
and
a
it's still done in love, even though there's this reprimand. It talks a lot about that in scripture, that a loving father reprimands his children. He corrects the bad behavior and changes the poor perspectives so that they grow up and learn to live healthy lives. If that's a good summation of that.
I preached on that last Sunday.
Okay. Shall we pray?
I guess we will. Go ahead and bow with us prayer then. Dear Lord in heaven, thank you for this day, and thank you for being the great and mighty God who set the foundations of this world and set the stars into space. Just know that you are bigger and greater than anything we can possibly ever hope to be. And just bow before you in humility that you are so much greater than we are. Thank you for giving your son to die on the cross for us and drawing us to you. And just ask you continue to lead people each and every day and draw them to you. We thank you for everything you've done. Thank you that you are just once again you, the amazing Father and God who created all the constellations and set them in their place. And just thank you for everything done. In your holy name I pray. Amen.
Cool. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts on God's response to Job, and yeah, and then we'll go through some more next week. Let us know if you have any prayer requests or questions. You can let us know in the comments below, or you can send us an email. Our website is www.atheartministries.org, and the email is atheartministries@gmail.com.
Or you can come visit us.
We'll find a project or two or 7 to work on, and
or you can come teach high schoolers.
Yeah. So more on that in our update video, hopefully coming soon.
Sometime.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye.
Fire falls from heaven down.